using divs, and you have, for example, negative margins and such, even if the pane is collapsed, the space it was occupying will still be visible. What the pane collapse widget does is allow you to define rules that allow that collapsing feature to work even with semantic designs. So now, I'll give you some examples. It always helps to understand. Well, first of all, if you look at the syntax of the widgets, it's consistent with what you saw with the server-side widget. So once you've figured out the object syntax, you can use it for both server-side widgets and client-side widgets, all in the same HTML page. Here, the only difference being that in the code type, you put .NET Nuke/client. Code base would be the name of the actual widget you want. In this particular case, I have a widget that has a specified height and width, and I'm telling it that I want it to get its images from a folder that's a subfolder of the skin called images headers. I'm telling it there are 6 images, and I'm telling it that the images are named header_01, header_02, header_03, and so on and so forth. And I want it to display for 3,000 milliseconds. I want it to go from right to left, and I want them to pop versus blend. So obviously, we'll have documentation that kind of tells you how to use that rotator widget, because there's a bunch of other properties that allow you to really customize it. But as you can see, the approach is very consistent with that of the server-side objects, and it's exactly the same. The next example I have there is the style sheet widget, and there, the part that's probably most confusing there is the template. So as I mentioned when I was talking about the style sheet widget, what it does is it creates an icon, and that icon can be clicked on by the user to toggle another area of the page, visible and invisible. Well, the template here basically is asking you, how do you want that icon to appear? In this particular case, I've said I want it to be an input element, type equals button. I want whatever text I specify for each option the user has to be displayed there. So by option, if you look lower down there, it says param name small, medium, and large. So this particular widget is designed to allow the user to pick a style sheet that will adjust the width of the skin layout they are seeing. And the choices you're giving them is small, medium, and large. And so what will happen is, when this widget is rendered on the page, it will create 3 input buttons, and it will use the layout -1400 as a default. And when the user clicks on any of the others, it will pick the style sheet which is there in the value field, so layout-1024.css, and it will apply that to the page. So we'll see that in action also. It'll become a little clearer. So you go there. Any questions about widgets thus far? Nope. All right, I'm doing a stellar job then. Thank you. All right, so let's. I see your hand.
What is the big difference between a widget and like a skin object?
A skin object is a server-side entity. A widget is a client-side browser entity. Thank you. So with regard to creating widgets, we've included a template there that will allow anyone who knows a little bit of JavaScript to go ahead and easily create widgets. We intend to make it very, very simple. It does use the Microsoft ASP.NET AJAX library, but that is not a limitation. You can use any kind of library you want. If you're familiar with jQuery, bring it on. If you're familiar with Prototype, bring it on. Whatever is fine. We've also built in support for these widgets to be packaged along with skins and modules or standalone. Now, I use the term modules there because we've been talking about, excuse me.
Sorry, when you say easily modified, is there going to be any kind of working examples of a couple of those?
Yeah, the ones we just talked about will be included. So yeah, there's certainly examples, and we'll blog more about it so you can have a better understanding of them. So I've been talking about skin, the widgets in the context of a skin, but there's absolutely nothing that prevents you from going into a text HTML module and typing in this exact same syntax, and it'll work just the same way. So as a module developer, you could have your module spit out this kind of code, and it would work just the same. So widgets are in the browser, and they don't recognize any distinction between a skin or a module, or whether it's a client side, an end user putting in the code. So obviously, if you have a module that allows you to input HTML, then this is fair game. But if it doesn't, then it wouldn't. In the future, obviously, as I mentioned, we spent a lot of time on the framework aspects of this. So now we'll actually start getting into creating more widgets. We'd like to have Flash widgets, Flex widgets, Silverlight widgets, and also build in support for gadgets, both the Vista gadgets and the open source Google gadgets. We'd also like to create extensions for Dreamweaver, expressions, etc. that will allow you to essentially have a toolbar full of these widgets, and as you're doing your design, you click on it and you drop it in there, and you can use a form to complete the properties, etc. So really, make it as simple as possible. So that's the widget aspect of it. The next thing I want to talk about is what I call super style sheets. So until today, other than the portal and the default style sheets, skin designers haven't had anything from the core that was in any way giving them guidance on consistency, on making their skins standards compliant, or even just having some degree of control over what to, in terms of a baseline for the characteristics of the skin. So what we've done is, first and foremost, if you're familiar with the Yahoo user interface library, they have two excellent style sheets among a lot of others. The first one is called Reset. And this style sheet, what it does is give you the ability as a skin designer to essentially reset all the characteristics of a browser so that regardless of which browser it is, I should say there's a caveat there, regardless of which A-grade browser it is, it will have consistent elements. For example, all the table borders will be set to 0, margin and padding will be set to 0, etc. So instead of starting with a canvas that varies based on the browser, just by applying the style sheet, you know that it's uniform across the board, no matter what browser is coming on board. So having reset that, now perhaps you want to ensure that there is some baseline consistency there. And that's where the base style sheet comes into play, which is the next style sheet that we included here. And as you can see, the A-grade browsers are pretty broad. I mean, this would capture upwards of 95, 97% of your user base. And what this particular style sheet will do is it will ensure that there will be a consistent styling for all elements across the browser. The first one only levels them off. This one goes one step further and places certain attributes on HTML elements to ensure that if you were to apply no other styles, that in every browser, the elements would look identical. So those are some real basic super style sheets. Now we come to the style sheets that are more meaningful. Now at this juncture, I'd like to state that some of the style sheets that I'm going to talk about here are probably of less importance to more experienced skin designers than they are to designers who are just getting into the fray. So we never require usage of these style sheets, but if you want to take advantage of them, they are available. So the first super style sheet, the third super style sheet is rounded corners. Now, there are literally hundreds and hundreds of blog posts, probably books written about rounded corners and the different CSS techniques, cross-browser CSS techniques to create them. Yet, a lot of designers still struggle with them and end up writing way more code than they need to. So we now have a rounded corner CSS support in the core, which by basically incorporating this style sheet, rounded corners become real easy. We require the designer to simply create 8 images, and we name them according to their direction. So you have, starting at the top right there, northwest, north, northeast, east, southeast, south, southwest, and west. So you create those 8 images, and the style sheet will ensure that you have a seamless image with rounded corners that can scale infinitely in either direction, horizontal or vertical.